Three, two, one. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome back for another fantastic episode of Dissect Ed. Today, we are honored to have Darryl Williams with us. So, Darryl, welcome.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah, if you have listened to Dissect Ed, you know, and seen me on social, you know that my new favorite place to hang out is TikTok, which if you know me, there's some people just listen, but anybody who knows me is like, that doesn't seem to line up, because I thought TikTok was like dancing and doing all these cool things, and I'm not that cool. So the fact that TikTok's my new favorite place actually surprised me. But I have met and I've seen amazing educators on TikTok, and so it's actually been a source of real joy for me, because it's a space where I can find people who are happy with what they're doing and want to spread a message. And it's a real easy way to do that. So actually, for everybody listening, this is how I met Darryl. And I'm so happy that the TikTok verse brought us together. And he immediately caught my attention, and you will see why throughout this episode. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Darryl, just to introduce yourself to our listeners. Who are you? What have you been doing in life? What are you doing now?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I feel like you covered it. That's me. That's all me. But it's funny that you mentioned TikTok, because that you're new to TikTok, because I am as well. You know, I was thinking about a whole bunch of 12-year-olds dancing, thinking about our students, but that's not a place where we would hang out, but actually it is. But yes, as Michaela mentioned, I'm Darryl Williams. I am a teacher turned instructional coach turned founder of the Pursuit of Excellence, where my goal is to give teachers tools, tips, and resources to maximize student growth. So I was a middle school math teacher. Shout out to all my math people for one, my middle school people for two. And I taught for 7 years, teacher of the year a couple of times, 2 different districts while I was there. And just recently became an instructional coach. And then as of the last year or so, I started my own business where, again, I help the teachers with resources, and the founder of the Pursuit of Excellence. And I'm excited. So I'm a little bit I'm on YouTube, My Pursuit of Excellence. I'm on TikTok, as Michaela mentioned, My Pursuit of Excellence. So here I am. That's me.
Oh, we're gonna blow it up here and have people following you, definitely, because the purpose of this podcast is really to bring awesome people to educators. So we've got, educational leaders who listen, teachers, we've got people outside of the education world who also listen. And it's really helpful, because we need great people like you in our world. And, what caught my attention about you at first was just, I had seen a couple of your TikToks. I didn't understand what was happening on TikTok and how I was seeing videos. Once I realized, I was like, oh, this is Guy again. And you actually did something I learned my first stitch, where you said, what's the biggest impact education has had on you, and I just felt compelled to answer, and I was like, I gotta learn more about this Darryl guy, and so I looked at your profile, and I said, wow. I feel like we speak such a similar language when it comes to our belief in teachers and our approach to coaching, and then our belief in kids and our approach to teaching. And shout out to you also for teaching math and middle school, because I feel like you are a unicorn. And it deserves a lot of props. I've not taught math, but I have taught and worked in middle school. I absolutely loved it. Didn't realize I would, but it takes special people to love what they do when they're in middle school. And I feel like you're one of them. So
honestly, and it's funny because I speak to my coworkers now. They always ask if I would ever go back to the classroom. And actually I would. And I would definitely go back to a middle school math classroom. I would try high school because I'm also into sports. So I really like to see what high school is doing, the sports after school. I mean, they're following them to college and things like that. But yeah, I would definitely teach middle school math again. That's my heart.
I went back to the classroom. Yeah, I did. And it could, because I said, when's the last time my heart was happy? And it was happy teaching special ed. And I ended up at middle school and high school. So I was in both. And it was amazing. It was really cool perspective too, after, being in leadership, to go back. And I just loved being around the kids again. So it was really, really, really fun.
But that's more power to you. Like, just for a second, if I can talk about you, because that's huge. A lot of people don't have that kind of confidence to be able to go back to the classroom after leaving. And I really love for people to have options. So I love that for you. You recognize what really drives you, what makes your heart happy, and you were able to follow through and stick with that and not worry about status quo or, what everybody
Yeah.
else expects you to do.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I've taken paths that, like, my path is like, windy. But it's always guided by a couple things. One is just like, where can I do the most good? And also, like, I learned to also think of it as like, what's good for me, like what's filling my heart. For a long time, where I could do the most good and what filled my heart just naturally and automatically aligned. I didn't have to think about it. Like, I just knew I am a teacher. I was a soccer coach and softball coach.
Okay.
And, I was that's the stuff I was
we're more
doing.
similar than I thought.
Yeah, we are so similar. And I was, it didn't, like, everything I was doing was so aligned. It was when I stepped into, and then as an assistant principal, coaching teachers, and then working with kids, and like, we were working on attendance, still completely aligned. No question, no doubt. I was at every athletic event. Like, it was just, I was like, oh my gosh, like, all my worlds are all in one place. And then when I stepped into the principal role, that's where things became just misaligned for me as a person, because I wasn't looking to, accelerate my career into any one space. I didn't really even see myself as a principal, so I was surprised to end up there. And then I was like, people are like, oh, so what, in 3 to 5 years, where do you see yourself? And I was like, surviving. I don't know. I'm still alive.
That's a good goal, though. That's a good goal.
I didn't know. I just knew that, like, what I was doing in that moment, I was going to keep doing, because I wouldn't give up on, like, the kids and the teachers I was working with and I was serving. But it took me a long time to understand that it was okay to admit to myself that I needed to, that role was not good for me for so many reasons. And so I didn't know. People kept saying, oh, what are you going to do next? I'm like, I don't know. I literally don't know. I just know that I'm stepping away from that role. But I had to keep asking myself, when was the last time my heart was full? And it really was in the classroom. Yeah. So it's led me, I let my heart lead me into places. And also just my mission and passion too. So those two things keep me going.
Come on, see, you're encouraging me right now, and you don't even know it, but because I'm literally in the valley of decision right now as well. So I have an admin degree. I continue to get, opportunities to be assistant principals or things like that, and just going back to asking myself what makes my heart happy. But it's really hard to make those decisions when a lot of the other outside pressures are saying this is the next step for you, continue to climb the ladder. But I'm happy. Like, I love coaching teachers. I love the involvement that I can still have with kids. And I feel like the higher up I go, kind of the less attached I will be. So I really am happy right now. And I like to stay where I am.
You know what? And actually, it's funny because I coach principals, and, I coach them because I know there are things that made my experience, it wasn't optimal. And there are things I can support other principals with that can help them avoid some of the things that I wasn't able to, and hopefully keep them, because they're great in their roles. But I also always say, especially after, like, what I put myself through, thinking I had to stay on a certain path, or I wasn't allowed to get off of it, or I couldn't get off of it, is that, you're young. I'm young. Well, I'm youngish. I was young. And
You're young.
But, you have so much time left. We all know that, like, we're not retiring until we're like 90, but no, we have so much time left, and to just keep doing what's filling your heart until it's not, until there's some compelling reason why you can't, because, people used to say to me, oh, this might be your only chance. And I still was like, no, but I don't want to. And whatever forces came to power to make me move, they said, you have to. And I didn't know how to say no. I just didn't. So, but I knew what was keeping me happy at that time was my assistant principal role. It was doing a lot of what you say you're doing, where I was working, like, my principal carved it out, where I was doing the stuff that I was good at and that was good for me and was really good for the teachers. So I was more of like a coach with the teachers, and then working with kids on attendance improvement. So it was like, I got to do the stuff I love doing. And so, you just, let your heart will tell you.
That's huge. And that's actually what sparked the vision for Pursuit of Excellence. And kind of what my mission is. Like, my mission is to make sure that I give students the option to choose to live the life that they choose, and not a life that they're forced to settle for. Because I don't want anybody to have to live a life that they have to settle for because they don't have the education to do something else. They don't have the knowledge to do something else or the ability to do something else. So they just have to settle for whatever is given to them. That's not a good feeling. And that's not the way I want anybody to have to live their life. So one thing that I'm hearing from both of us is that we have the option to flip back and forth. We want to be a principal. We want to be a teacher. Like, we have options, but I just hate for when people don't. And that's really why, that's what grounds me in my work, making sure that I set people up for success to be able to choose whatever it is that they eventually want to choose.
So I love that. That's how meta, right? Like, we're like zooming out for a second to look at the fact that like there's so much power in having choice and then giving us permission also to like let those choices in and make those decisions. And you're right. How fortunate are we that we can make those decisions and we have A, the tools, and B, the experience and all of the things, the conditions to be able to make those choices. And you talked about how your vision for setting students up to have those same choices as they, exit high school and go on to post-secondary life. Can you tell us more about that? Because I know that's you have my pursuit of excellence, and you have very specific ways that you'd recommend to empower students and to help them grow. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different phases when I think about growth and when I think about how to maximize student growth. So when I'm talking about growth, I'm talking about it about academic growth, which is obviously, this is the work that we do in schools, as well as personal growth, because I'm a firm believer that good teachers are going to teach subjects, but great teachers teach students. And to teach students means that we're teaching beyond just the content area that's been assigned to us, right? But now we're building up mindset, we're building life skills, we're building the things that they need to be successful human beings. And so when I focus on academic growth, I definitely, when I was in the classroom, one of the things that led me to be Teacher of the Year a couple of different times was the way I was able to grow students. I've always worked in low income areas, and I've always worked in schools, the areas where the students were super behind 2-3 years. I'm pre-pandemic.
Same,
you know what I'm saying?
Same. That's my whole career. Same.
Right. So I've just always been growth centered. So I learned a lot of different strategies and tricks. And so those are the things that I like to give to teachers. Try this, do this, talking about exit tickets and how to effectively use exit ticket data to affect instruction and things like that. But then, and when I'm talking about the personal growth, then I'm talking about how we can affect student mindset, affect their life skills, their character. We're talking about conflict resolution, talking about anger management, and those types of things that you need in order to leave a school building and to continue to be a successful person. So those are all the things that I focus in on a lot, just because options, right? It's all about creating options. If you have a hot head, if you can be smart, but if you have a hot temper and you can't resolve conflicts with people, you don't have the option to be in a corporate setting. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's all about options.
Yeah. And, and you nailed it. You said pre-pandemic, right? Like, yes, for anybody who is maybe not in education listening, the things that you're hearing teachers talk about right now as far as challenges, they all existed prior to the pandemic. So like this concept of like, people keep saying like the learning gap, learning loss, learning however they want to coin it, because I typically don't pay attention to those phrases. I don't like them. Even though I acknowledge we have to bring our students along. We need to teach them everything they can learn. And also I don't like those phrases. However, since I started teaching 17 years ago, those phrases were being used, right? Yeah. Learning gaps, achievement gaps. So you nailed it. This isn't new, but it might be more pronounced or just amplified now that we're, where we are 2 years post shutdown.
Yes. And it just looks completely different now to what the solutions are. So it's up to us to kind of figure out how we solve those problems now in 2022 and beyond. So that's where I get excited though.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. So, what are some of the ways that you, what are some of the approaches you take? So you're coaching right now. So I'm assuming that, you're obviously coaching teachers, but you must still interact with kids too, because you're in a K-8 100%. Setting, right?
Yeah.
So hard not to interact with K-8, right? I'm in an elementary school coaching a principal right now, and the kids light up my day.
Hmm.
I love
Hmm.
them. And they have no clue who I am. And sometimes like the little ones ask if I'm the new principal, and I'm like, oh no, you still like you're still. And they love their principal. They just like they
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so in the moment that all these stories they must tell themselves in their head. I'm like, they must wonder who is this woman who's in their school three times a week.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of joy in the kids. So, what do you, right now in you can talk about your role, in schools and then in building your company out too.
Hmm.
What are some of the things that we can do to help a student grow in, like, let's talk about like personally, right? So like personal
Yeah.
growth and how
Okay.
we're building building that for them, because a lot of times it's lacking from the
Mhm.
school, like the school curriculum that teachers are given to teach or told to teach.
Yeah.
What are some of the approaches that you've seen work or that you've used yourself?
Absolutely. I have a couple. And I just want to say, as I heard you talking, thinking about the fact that you're in the schools a couple of times a week, I think it's huge as my role as well, where you can have a strong impact without being the person that they see all the time.
Yes.
And I think that's huge. Sometimes you can have more of an impact. I kind of think about it like the cool uncle. Like how
Yeah.
you always have mommy and daddy, but then sometimes your cool uncle steps in and they can say one thing and you're just like, yeah, like that's it. And that's like me. So I'm an instructional coach, but I work in 3 different school buildings.
Okay.
So I spend I'm at one school on Mondays, another school Tuesday, Wednesday, another school Thursday, Friday. So students kind of barely see me, but when I'm able to when I'm on their campus, I make sure I go in their classrooms and communicate with them. And I feel like it's like a power packed segment whenever we interact, because it's like, oh, there goes Mr. Williams. We get to talk, and we're always talking about growth. And so now to answer the second part of your question,
Mhm.
the things that lead to growth, when I'm huge
Mm.
on goal setting, of course, a growth mindset, right? And then those are the 2 that I mainly focus on when I first start off, because and don't tune me out, because a lot of people I'm
No,
about to get into it. Don't tune me out,
no. Tune
because
in, tune
those
in.
aren't those aren't things that people haven't heard of before. Goal setting,
Absolutely right.
but or growth mindset, but they're so saturated that they're not done well because people hear it so often.
You,
So with
you're so right.
and that's it. So like with goal setting, just being really strategic. And that's what I'm doing with all the schools that I'm at now. So setting the goal and then following through. And then, so I use a SMARTer goal framework. It's like, you've heard of SMART goals.
Right.
Maybe you've heard of SMARTer goals. The E and the R stand for evaluate, as well as reward and reflect. So SMARTer.
Oh, I like
And the
that.
E for evaluate. Oh yeah. And I have a whole bunch about this on my YouTube channel, but the E for evaluate means, how are you going to evaluate that progress along the way? A lot of people set a goal and forget it at the beginning of the year. Even if it's a SMART goal, we'll
Of
set
course.
it and kind of just walk away.
Yeah.
But no, you have to evaluate it along the way. Students need to be invested in evaluating their progress. And that's what's going to help them get invested and help them to drive, because now they care about it.
Yes.
And then the R, reflect and reward. It's okay to reward a goal. So students know what the reward is going to be as the time the goal is set. And whether you get it or whether you don't, we reflect, because sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you always learn. So we always reflect on what that is. So every time, I have month goals with every school, and I'm actually just recorded the video today. So I'll set the goal with the students. They know what the reward is. We evaluate every other week, and then I send the video of whoever achieved the goal at the end. I send it out to all the
That's
schools.
cool.
And yeah, so that's one of the things. So when they see me, of course, they recognize me from the videos, and they see me and they're like, I met my goal, Mr. Williams, da, da, da. And it's just like, it's awesome. We just have a small interaction. That's great.
Doesn't that
Growth mindset is very similar.
make you so fulfilled and happy when you have those interactions, when they're so excited to tell you
It
that you
does.
reached the goal?
It does, because it shows that it works, right? It shows that if somebody is invested in me, somebody believes that I can do this, and I'm seeing the progress, like I'm seeing the fruit of my labor. It's building up their own confidence to say, I got this, and just to see the excitement on their face. And these are just the students that are stopping me in the hallway.
Right.
I'm pretty sure there's some more introverted students that are feeling this, but they won't speak to me. But these are just the students that are just like, oh my goodness, it's working. I actually can do this. And I love that.
It's that, to me, actually, I'm pretty sure that's the video I stitched with you, is when you said, like, what's the most like I forgot what you asked, the most impactful
The most
part.
rewarding part of education.
Thank you. Rewarding part of education for you. And I had never done a stitch, but I was like, I've seen somebody do this, and I think I clicked and I'm like, oh, there it is. And when I hit stitch, it was like perfect. I think you said stitch this, actually. That's probably why I did it. I was like, oh, we said stitch it. Okay, I'm gonna find that. And, when you asked the question, it was the perfect spot for me to just jump in. And I literally, like, it wasn't planned. I just did it wherever I was in my house. And I said it was when, I might have been in the car, but I said when students realize their strengths and they realize they hit a goal, or they accomplish something, and then they realize they can do it. Because that is the best feeling, to watch a kid be like, oh, wait a second, I did it.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do it.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it is. I remember when I was, like, as a teacher, it was I just thought everybody felt that way. So when I was teaching special ed in high school, we were doing tons of things, right? Like, a lot of times I was told, like, oh, you guys can't do that, or your kids won't do that. And I was like, it was like foreign to me. I was like, okay, sure. And then we just go do it. But as a school leader, you kind of get this like 50,000 foot view. And then you can kind of see the impact of like belief in students versus like non-belief in students. And, people might say, like, is it really that simple? No, it kind of is that simple. Like, you believe in students, and then you show them what they can do. You kind of clear the path and help them get there. And that first time they realize, like, I did it, is so powerful for them. It makes them want to do it again.
Yeah.
It makes them want to continue to do it.
And I'll take that one step further, or flip it, actually, because to say, when you say, is it really that simple to believe in students? It is. It's also really that simple to not believe in students.
Oh.
And a lot of people feel that they believe in students, but their actions and the things that they do don't necessarily do that. Right. So we'll hang up like a growth mindset poster, or, we'll say these things, but the way that we treat students, some of the things that we say, some of our actions in terms of not having grace and things like that, show that there is not a belief, or not giving second chances shows that there is not a belief. But if you were to ask that teacher, sometimes they'll say, yeah, I believe all my students can learn, but actions don't match up.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think there's some inner work to do there, for all of us in education to really identify, like, what does belief actually look and sound like, right? What does belief in students look and sound like? And that kind of takes me to you talk a lot about, I've noticed, whether I visited your website or just in some of your TikToks, about keeping hope alive in education. That resonates profoundly with me. So I wanted to ask you, why is that such an important message for you?
Yeah, well, because for me, the hardest season of my life was my first year teaching. And it really was not just my professional career, like literally 2014, my first year teaching was the hardest phase of my life, because I was not good at it being an educator. It just was not for me, but that's not something that typically happens to me. So then I'm feeling down. I'm feeling like I wasted my money. I feel like I went to school for 4 years for what? Like, this career isn't for me. All my friends, so we were all in the same classes and in math. As I got my math degree, all my friends went off to engineering school and I became a teacher. Yep. And I was like, man, like I did the wrong thing. But the reason why, what brought me back year two, it's funny because I went to a college graduation the year after I graduated. So after my first year teaching, my wife graduated, and her commencement speaker gave me a message of hope that let me know that don't underestimate your impact. And it made me think about the fact that I can actually do this. Like, somebody actually needs me. Even if it's just one person, somebody actually needs me. So the reason why my message is a message of hope is because I honestly feel like everybody is somebody that somebody needs. Yes. And I think that everybody can be an effective educator. Like, that's a strong statement. I honestly believe that.
I honestly believe it too.
Yes. Like, they just need, sometimes it's environment, sometimes it's teaching, sometimes it's they need more tools in their toolbox, but everybody is an expert in their expertise, and their expertise is useful in some setting. You just have to find the right setting and be able to use the right skills. So for me, my message of hope is to teachers saying that you are enough. Like you absolutely are. You may not have all the tools you need right now, but who you are, your being is enough. And you can take that into your classroom or into the classroom and be effective. I just want to help you get more tools in your toolbox so that you can have more options again to pull from, to help you feel successful and to help you actually maximize student growth.
And, so you may have been, brought back in for year 2 into teaching because when you heard that message of you're needed, you probably thought of your students, right? Like, kids need me.
Absolutely.
But I'll say, in listening to you and honestly seeing you on TikTok and looking at, and meeting with you before and looking at your webpage, like, teachers need you. Like, the adults in education need you. I'm maybe you know how much they need you, but you may not know how much you're really needed, because there are so many teachers that don't receive that message that you're good enough. You are enough, right? You are enough. Or if you're not feeling great right now, okay, so let's get you what you need and let's grow that. And it's feeling great isn't too far away. There are so few teachers. I work with teachers across the country this year, virtually, doing all different things like group coaching, one-on-one coaching, free trainings on just quick and simple classroom management strategies. And that's the overwhelming sentiment that I hear, is that they just
really,
and I was coaching a teacher early on, but as the school year was starting, and she was just saying, I had my last 4 years were the worst years of teaching for me. She's like in her 17th year now. I mean, she was really, really just really defeated. She looked defeated, but the thing is that she said, I love my students. Like, I love students and I know I can do this. I just need to figure it out. And by like the second session, she was literally crushing it. And I'm like, well, I mean, I love what I do, but I'm not a magician. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, I don't have like a magic wand I'm going to wave. And like, honestly, since I'm a coach, like, she's the one doing the work. I'm just helping her like figure out how she wants to do it and what it looks like for her to be authentic in the classroom and show up as herself. Yeah. And I told her, like, you're enough. Like, because she was comparing herself to some other teachers on her team. And that to me, like, I had a teacher resign, in 2019 because he was comparing himself to other teachers. I didn't know he was doing this. I wish I would have known, a month leading up to this, because he was incredible. I mean, he had this like skill set you can't teach, as far as like how he related to students, and, they needed him. And when he ever said like how he was comparing himself and how he saw himself when he looked at others, I was like, Manny. He told me I could use his name. I said, Manny. I was crying. He was crying because it was his last day. He was leaving the next day. And I was like, I have to find him. I've got to go see him, because I didn't know he was going through this. And so, we were talking, I'm crying, he's crying. And I said, I wish you knew. And now I know you're not, I know you're leaving, but you have to know before you walk out these doors that you are incredible. And everything you showed up as every single day was enough. Can we tighten up the routine? Sure. Can we tighten up the do now instead of timer? Yeah. But everything you brought to the table was more than enough. These kids needed you. You had something so magical and special. And he was like, I didn't know that. And my heart obviously like broke into a million pieces, because to lose somebody. And it was more than that. It was the fact that he went through 2 months thinking that about himself as a teacher. What is,
and you know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm here for. Like, the Mannies of the world who have those innate skills, but just need a couple of different tweaks, a couple of tools to help them truly be successful, but without making them feel like less than, like without making them feel like what you're doing is not enough and you're incapable and incompetent. And I feel like, honestly, sometimes in education, we can do such a good job of that to teachers. And that's what happened to me a lot early on. And that's where the comparison comes in, because sometimes they'll present with a cookie cutter mold that says, this is what I want to see as an effective teacher. And if I don't fit in that mold, I must be inadequate.
And that's literally, I view myself. I'm sorry for everybody who's listening to this on your YouTube channel. My dogs they're like 4 rooms away, and somehow, and they're 3 pounds, and they make it into every podcast. They have great timing, but you know,
Just the way it works.
that's that's exactly what happened with Manny and with another teacher a month later who, thankfully he actually sent me his resignation letter like the night before he was going to. And I think it was, for him, it was almost like a cry for help in a way. Like,
Wow.
it's like he needed somebody to know. Well, he was telling somebody, but that person wasn't telling me, and I didn't know, and he didn't know that wasn't. So anyway, it ended up in my hands. Thank God, because I read it and I went, oh, no. This is not happening again to a second teacher. His name is Kevin. And he had this, again, really amazing way of connecting with students. And so, we met a lot in the beginning. And then, it was a matter of a month and a half before this teacher, who was a day away from resigning because he felt like he was the worst teacher that ever walked the face of the earth. He was crushing it. When I say crushing it, everything, like routines and procedures, kids were, everything was being done time in the time that he was giving it, and he was differentiating. He was doing all these things. Discipline referrals were like non-existent at that point. Everything was restorative. He felt like himself. But I remember meeting with him, and I was like, I need you to explain to me what you're going through. And he said, I don't yell. And I was like,
oh my goodness, that was me.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm the principal and I don't yell either, And he was like, yeah, but I feel like in this coaching, in this classroom management, methodology that we're supposed to be using, which was like a district thing. Yeah. And the way that he was seeing other teachers use it, he's like, I feel like I'm supposed to raise my voice or do this and do that. And I said, no, Kevin, I said, maybe, that might work for the teacher you're hearing across the hall.
Yeah.
But you're you, and you don't need to yell. As I used to do lunch duty when I was in a middle school for 250 7th graders, 6th graders, and then 8th, so 3 lunches. And I had to do lunch announcements, and I was by myself. So I'm there in the cafeteria doing lunch announcements, which I hated, but every day I had to pick up the mic, and I was like, okay, here we go. And I'd get myself ready to do it. But the way that, how was I going to quiet everybody down? I certainly wasn't scream, I wasn't going to blow a whistle. If I blew a whistle, I could, but then the kids would know that didn't match my personality, right? And that didn't match my presence in the hallway. It didn't match anything about what I did. So I would just stand there. I usually would just tap it a couple times, say good afternoon or good morning, depending on what time it was.
Yeah.
And within 30 seconds, they'd be quiet. And if one person wasn't, I would just look at them and they were like, it's just whatever presence you bring, your authentic self.
Come on now.
You need to be, right? I know you know that. So
man, I made a YouTube video about this. My 5 tips I learned my first year teaching, or 5 lessons I learned my first year teaching. And that's one of them. It's crazy how you talk about yelling, because this is me. I have a big mic right now because this is the loudest I get. This is what I have to do. But when I was comparing myself, a lot of teachers on the hallway that I felt were effective were yelling. And what I've learned is that it's not the fact that they were yelling all the time. I put the emphasis on the wrong word. I put the emphasis on yelling. It's the fact that they were yelling all the time.
Right.
What students were responding to was the consistency with which was whatever the consequence. So the teacher's consequence was to yell, which I don't agree with necessarily, but that was her. That's the way she did it, was to yell. But she did that all the time. So students knew that once she yells, this is how I should respond. So what I had to learn is what is going to be my thing. And just like how you said, yours was the look. I had a very similar look. I'll look, I'll wait. I'm relationships. I'm just like, come on, that kind of thing. But students knew that once I was consistent and consistently rewarding and consistently consequencing and consistent with my clear expectations, that's when a lot of things started to connect for me. And I was like, oh, I can be me as long as I'm clear and consistent.
Yeah. And that's why when I found you, thank you, TikTok verse. But when I saw you and I saw a couple of your messaging, I was like, man, this is what teachers need, because they don't hear this enough. And look at you, you didn't hear it enough in your first year and you had to figure it out. But thank goodness you pushed through that and you're like, no, I'm here for a reason. But there are a lot of teachers that, for whatever reason, whether it's a lack of a connection with somebody else in the school or lack of confidence or just being unsure, they step away.
Yeah.
And that's sad. Like, we want to see that happen. So when you said like your message of hope and how you're enough, I'm like, oh, he's speaking my language. So I want to ask you, what, as we close it out, you put out a video and you said, stitch this, and you asked us what the most rewarding part of education was for us. And so now I'm going to ask you, what is the most rewarding part of education for you?
I got you. So I did. It's funny. So I'll give a little backstory about that TikTok video, that video has about 5,000 views right now at the time of recording this. What is the most rewarding part of education for you? And I shared what my most rewarding part is. But the reason why I went with that video was because prior to that, I asked, what is the most challenging part in education for you? That was the first video I stitched. That's the first video I created with the stitch component. Mm-hmm. That video has over 100,000 views right now. And I find it so interesting that it's easy for us to complain about some of the things that are going wrong. It's easy for us to pull out the things that are challenges, which is why I wanted to reroute it and say, okay, so now what are the things that is rewarding for you? And for me, the things that's rewarding for me is to watch a student take something that they know nothing about and learn how to figure it out. Because I'm all about options yet again. And if they can show me that pattern of starting something I know nothing about, I'm middle school math, Pythagorean theorem. What? Like scientific notation? Why are we doing this? Like, right. So honestly, if I wasn't a middle school math teacher, I wouldn't use Pythagorean theorem in my regular day to day, right? But honestly, no. But I think it's okay to mention that, because my message was to students and to teachers now, is that it's okay to be real with that. It's okay to be real to say you may never use Pythagorean theorem after you leave college, high school. You may never use scientific notation, but my goal, I'm not teaching you how to do it because I'm focused on the content. It's on the character that is developing within you. I need you to take this because you know nothing about scientific notation. Mm-hmm. I want to see what you can do with something you know nothing about and see if you can struggle with it, if you can work with it, if you have the grit, tenacity, and resilience to stick with it until you figure it out. And that's the conversation that I have with students. And that's what I encourage teachers to tell, because middle school, they can see through the lies and the fakeness. I heard somebody one time, right. Somebody wanted to be a basketball player and they was like, why do we need to know, are we talking about angles? Like, why, the quadratic formula? Why do I need to know the quadratic formula? And the teacher tried to break down, well, when you shoot the ball, the arc of the ball is going to be t squared minus. I was like, no, like they know I don't need to calculate this in my head. But I mean, come on, if you want to be a basketball player, there's obviously going to be some things that are going to be hard for you, difficult for you, communicating with people. Time management is huge. That's a life skill, right? So I'm teaching you through giving you these assignments, how to manage time and practice. Can you do your homework assignment and go to basketball practice and your AAU game on the weekend? So it's not necessarily always the content, which is why I said growth is in so many different phases, but it's about becoming just a better student, not always just about the subject, but about those students. So that's kind of that was a long way to answer your question, but that's what sparked the reason for asking that on TikTok.
I mean, I feel like we need to close it there because you just like a mic drop. Like the way you explained that was beautiful.
Hey, it's your show. If you say so,
that was such an amazing way to explain. I haven't heard somebody explain it that way because I was supporting an 8th grade math class 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the like, why do we need to learn this? Like, that comes up all the time. And to hear some of the explanations as to why. And the thing is, like, for me, I didn't really have an answer because I didn't teach math. So when I was teaching, I taught social studies and I was a special ed teacher. And so, for me, I was like, well, right now, this is like, I would try to, like, this is a concept that's important. But to hear how you explained it, like, and I used to say too, like, we're making our brains grow, like we're working out different parts of our brains that may not get to work out otherwise. But the way you explained it, like, I think it also is great for teachers to hear because sometimes they don't know because that's the kid's best skill is challenging us, right? Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to do that? I'm never going to use this. and to constantly have to feel like you got to explain why it's important,
Mhm.
that sometimes people struggle with that. And that's for them to hear that from you, I think is really helpful.
Absolutely. I do have just one more thing, but yeah,
Yeah,
so like it's definitely always again about options because you never know if you're going to need the Pythagorean theorem. So
and that
if
is
I'm
truth.
right, like I'm helping you create options, but also there's other components or other reasons that go beyond the content. But some people, really are in a place like where they're struggling. So I just really wanted to kind of leave or end, if you allow me to,
Oh
kind
yeah,
of on
actually,
that
I
note.
I actually did want to ask you. Sorry, I was like so into your last answer. I was like,
No, 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 you're good.
am I supposed to talk after this? Because I feel like they need to we got to end this on Darryl. Me talking is going to take away from that. No, I did actually have a final question for you, which I think is where you're going, which is you mentioned your two videos that you stitched, right? One was what's the most challenging thing, and the next one was what is the most rewarding thing. And you mentioned that you have like 100,000 views on the most challenging one, and then 5,000 on the most rewarding. And I think that's you know, I had that same thing kind of happen to me, and it's why on the podcast we're podcasting on and talking about like how to how to keep hope going and how to inspire, because season 2, which ended up being like 18 episodes, it was long, was
Mm,
dedicated to like the struggle, right? But identifying clearly and specifically what the challenges were for teachers this year, because in September and October it was a lot of like, this is hard, this is hard, this is the hardest
yeah,
year, this is
yeah,
hard. And so I wanted to make sure that people heard from teachers what it really was that was challenging and what made this year different than others. So we devoted a lot of time to that. But I came to a point in probably January where I said to myself, okay, I think I need to pivot from here. Like, I think I need to acknowledge, like, yes, it's hard. And we could have 50 more episodes on challenges now and pre-pandemic. But we definitely need, if we stay in this space,
mhm,
there's, what is there to hope for? Unless you're somehow really good at finding the joy. What hope do teachers have that it's going to get better, or that they're going to reclaim or find that hope and that inspiration again to love what they
yeah.
do? And that was a sad feeling for me. And also I was like, we're going to lose everything. So I said, okay, season 3 needs to be devoted to like, let's get ourselves through this to the other side and find that joy again, find that inspiration. So I know that's possible. I know there are people who are going to leave, teachers leave education every year,
Yeah.
but this mass exodus that everybody's talking about, my mission in my company is to prevent that. I know I'm one person, but just to give teachers the tools to make them feel effective and needed and successful again, and joyful. I want to ask you, what would your advice be, or what might you say to a teacher who's in it right now? They're in the struggle, right? They're not feeling what you and I feel when we talk about teaching. They're feeling overwhelmed and tired, or not effective, or not successful, and
Yeah.
they're not feeling those great things. What might you say to them?
I'll say I've been there and I have a solution. and here it is. But first I'll give a little backstory. So when I first left the classroom a couple of years ago, I remember this clear as day. That's actually what sparked this activity that I do with my clients as I'm coaching them. And I remember I was walking into around the building, and I was just felt like I wanted to make my presence known. No, let's flip it. I was in the room first. I was in my office. I'm working on curriculum, working on instruction. I'm typing on my laptop, and somebody came into my office and they just opened. They said, "Man, it must be nice to be able to sit behind a desk all day and you don't have to walk around." I was like, "Man, like, I really have a lot of work to do, but maybe I should get into some classrooms more." Right. So I said, I'll just kind of do my paperwork at home and let me try to get into some more classrooms. So then I started just going around classrooms and inspiring people, giving them like a message of hope. And I would pop into classrooms. Do you need anything? A bathroom break? How are you doing? Just kind of those things. And then a different person, one day I popped into her classroom. She said, "Man, it must be nice to be able to just walk around all day." And I was like, you know what? So really, like, there's no pleasing everybody. There is no pleasing everybody. So I had to ask myself, I was in this space where I wasn't feeling like I was being effective at my job. And I had to ask myself, what is it that I want? So then I asked myself these 3 questions, and then I kind of packaged it and this is what I teach my clients. So think about what you want to do, fuse it with what you have to do, marry it with what you like to do, and you're left with what you get to do. So like, I sat down. What do I want to do? What's my why? I want to inspire student growth, right? Fuse with what I have to do. I pulled up my contract and I started going through the things that I have to do. These are the things I have to do. Then I wrote down the things that I like to do. I like interacting with students, right? I like making videos and sending them out. I like coaching teachers. So I wrote down the things I like to do. So now I have all three of these things in the Venn diagram, and I started pulling them all together. And then in the middle box, I answer the question. I respond to the statement. This is what I get to do. What I get to do is the marrying of all three of these things. I get to show up every day and go in classrooms, inspire students' growth, and coach teachers. Like, this is what I get to do. So now when you ask me what my job is, I can respond with this. And I'm encouraged because now I'm not focused on the fluff. I'm not focused on the things that are getting me down, the things that are making me feel inadequate or incompetent. But now I'm focused on the things that I get to do. So if somebody has a comment about me sitting behind my desk or popping into classrooms, that's fine because I'm at peace with it because I get to do this and I love doing this. So that's what I would say.
That is what incredible advice, because you're not focused on one thing that might be bringing you down, but rather like just flipping that framework altogether. Can you list those 3 questions that you asked yourself again?
Yep. So think about what you want to do. That's your why.
Yep.
And fuse it with what you have to do. That's your job requirements. Pull out that contract. And then marry those things with what you like to do. So what are those things throughout in your career that you actually enjoy doing? And when you put all 3 of those things together, you're left with what you get to do.
That is, I feel like that's gold right there. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. I feel like I've grown, and my heart's happy and full right now just with, talking with you. And I know that there are so many people there. I mean, there are teachers who need to hear these actual like this. I can actually do this. I'm going to try to do that tonight or tomorrow. There are teachers who might just be relieved that these conversations are happening and people are paying attention to how we're supporting teachers. And I think there are also leaders who are listening who can also either ask themselves the same questions like you said you did, right? When you were sitting in your office and like you're getting used to this new role. And also might realize too, like, hey, how are my teachers doing? And what message am I giving them? Through coaching, through evaluation, through whatever. Like, are they because I didn't know my 2 teachers were feeling the way they were feeling about not feeling like about comparing themselves. So I think that there is just so much from this that people can take away. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you so much. This was enlightening. I didn't know it was going to be like this. I thought it was going to be a 10-minute, like a TikTok situation, but no, I loved it. This was amazing.
So anybody who knows me also will tell you my husband included would say there's no way a conversation could be 10 minutes. No, but honestly too, like, I mean, this is just, I feel like we could go on for forever. But I want to also make sure that people can find you. You said it in the beginning. Can you repeat again though at the end? And I'm going to put it in the episode notes, like I put it in
for sure.
In writing. But if somebody's like driving in the car and they're listening, they want to remember, where can they find you?
Yes. So you can find me at mypursuitofexcellence.com. Or you can also find me on YouTube /mypursuitofexcellence, TikTok /mypursuitofexcellence. They're all, I'm not on Instagram yet, but they're all My Pursuit of Excellence. And quick funny story, but because my LLC is actually Pursuit of Excellence, that's because it was a play on the pursuit of happiness. So I wanted to do the pursuit of excellence.
I like that. Yep.
But that wasn't available. So I had to choose an article to put in front of it. So I had to stick the my in front of it. So My Pursuit of Excellence on all platforms.
Love it. My Pursuit of Excellence. You kept it easy, one to remember and one to definitely look up. So thanks again so much for being with us tonight, Darryl.
Thank you so much for having me, Michaela. It was so much fun. I'll see you next time.